Well, thank you for staying with Citizen TV's Kenya's Choice 2022. Let me introduce my guests real quick in no particular order. Honorable Njeri Maina is here, woman rep-elect for Kirinyaga. Asante sana for making time. Honorable Eddie Gisheru Okech, Senator-elect for Migori, is here. Thank you so much for making time. And Honorable Abdul Haro, Member of Parliament-elect for Mandera South. Asante sana for making time.
Thank you.
Speaking to them in terms of what the agenda is for the 13th Parliament, the newly elected members of Parliament. We'd like to hear from you at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Kenya's Choice 2022. Let's hear your advice to them as new members of Parliament. What do you expect from them? And also, going forward, what should they do differently? That's what we'd like to hear from you. We'll sample some of your views in this broadcast. Let's start right there. Njeri, you're not a stranger to this set, but you're definitely a stranger to the 13th Parliament. How has your life changed since then, since being elected woman rep for Kirinyaga?
Thank you for having me, Trevor. And I remember I first announced my candidature on this platform. So I also would like to thank Royal Media Services for giving me that platform. My life is a complete flip. And you know, now when you walk in the village, it's meshimua kila mahali. I wasn't used to that. You know, I'm very casual, and I'm not so keen on the title in regard to what I will offer my community. So for me, it's a complete flip. There are places now I can't go to. I can't be, you know, around certain areas, because at the end of the day, I am now going to be judged as the county woman member to the National Assembly of Kirinyaga. If I say something, maybe it's misquoted, it's going to be like, oh, the Kirinyaga woman rep said this. And maybe perhaps my people might be judged from my words. So I'm very careful on what I say and where I am and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Eddie, do you also have the same burden that now whenever you speak, it's not Eddie Gisheru Okech anymore, it's Migori, County Senator?
Yeah, thanks so much, Trevor, for this opportunity to share a few ideas about our experiences as new legislators. First of all, for me, you know, I want to take this chance, being the first opportunity to be on this TV, to first of all thank the people of Migori who have donated their sovereignty to me to represent them in the Senate by voting me and bestowing that trust in me to be the senator for Migori. And, you know, the difference for me has been mostly the gap between being in the private sector and then switching to the political office. Maybe just by way of a short introduction, I started my career in the civil society. I started a company called Ongoza, which was a youth business incubator in Kenya that was aiming to build businesses for young people, coaching and mentoring SMEs, and then providing capital to them. Then I switched to fintech and started a company called Anywhere, which was aiming at providing loans for micro assets like border borders and phones for young people in the country. So switching from that culture, corporate culture, to political culture has been a very difficult one. They're very different terrains. But all in all, I'm grateful to be in service for the people of Migori.
What is so different? What is so different from the private sector to the political side?
First of all, it's just the pace of life for young people, because you realize that most of the young people that I've interacted with don't have jobs, which is a common thing. But for me, the fundamental issue becomes the issue of income than jobs. So because you are seen as their leader and as a politician, sometimes the expectations for quick gratification and quick support becomes a key issue. You know, you fundamentally go thinking that this is the ultimate scale of development, where I am supposed to help with things like legislation to change a few things, but then you immediately run into issues like young people have got immediate problems, like I need food, I need to pay hospital bills. Our mothers and our fathers have immediate issues like their kids have got no fees to go to school. And the expectation then becomes that you as a politician is the one who's supposed to pay for those bills immediately. And, you know, it just becomes an overwhelming interaction. But all the same, you know, in the habit of having conversation with them, you end up thinking about a long-term solution to the community.
Okay, we'll get into the agenda of the day, but let's hear from Abdul Haro, Mheshimiwa, how has life changed?
Yes, it has. First of all, I'll also take cue from my colleagues and thank Citizen TV for the opportunity. At the same time, thank my voters in Mandera South constituency for having given me the opportunity to serve them in the 13th Parliament. Of course, it's a complete shift from the life that we used to live. I woke up in the morning on 9th of August as a candidate and went to bed on the same night as an MP-elect. That was a huge change in my life. I could see some of my friends who are on the other side supporting other candidates who are not able to even shake hands with me during the campaigns, you know, coming to me, shaking hands and wanting to take photos with me. Of course, that's completely shift just in very few hours. And of course, I come from my background for quite a number of years, almost 20 years. I've been working in the international NGO sector, working with humanitarian, as a humanitarian worker. And now, as a politician, definitely it's a completely different world. But I think I will not be able to have a shock of a lot of changes, because in the NGO world, basically what we do is community work. It's more or less like bringing in more experience that I've had in the NGO sector to be able to serve my people as a politician.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Njeri, let's get into the gist of this entire conversation. In terms of priorities, where do your priorities lie? As now, it's no longer campaign period now. This is now the reality.
I feel like what my colleague has said, there's a fine line to walk, Trevor, because what you find is that there are those immediate needs of the community. Young people want jobs. I can tell you I have, I think, over 200 now applications from young people, and my office is not even able to have a capacity to even directly hire even half of them, or even say 20% of them. And you find that people don't have foods, people don't have money to pay their bills. So for me, first of all, in my capacity as the Councilwoman member to the National Assembly, is to ensure that I at least have a conversation with my people and they understand the things that I am able to do at the moment before we work out on the long-term goals. But as far as the long-term priorities are concerned, I want to focus on economic empowerment that is sustainable. So if I'm going to engage the women's groups in any projects, I want to ensure at least we've sat down and we've seen that these are projects which are going to be sustainable in the long term and impact on them for a long-term purpose. I also want to focus on education from the kitty, the NGAF funds. I get to at least portion a certain amount towards education, and I also want to ensure that I focus on social welfare. We have arising issues of mental illness, and we have issues of teenage pregnancies. So those are the issues that I want to address in my first year in office. Yeah.
Eddie, for yourself, and we'll come back to Njeri and find out how exactly that will be done, but for you as a senator, you don't control any kitty.
Yes.
So where do your priorities lie? How will you execute? What is your agenda, basically?
Thank you. I mean, as you said, the Senate doesn't have any kitty. And in the psyche of our people, you find that when you are a politician, you have sometimes, because of lack of civic education, people think you do the same roles. People think you build schools. People think especially in the grassroots communities, people think you should be able to solve their personal problems, as I said before. But I got into politics fascinated by the concept of devolution, and actually the reality for our country since the adoption of the new constitution in 2010. Because I think that the idea that you can actually decentralize power and decentralize resources, reach the people to the closest possible, is an amazing concept. So my role as a senator, and the reason why I got very, very interested in it, is very well articulated for me in Article 96 of the Constitution. Sub-Article 1 says that the senator represents the interests of the people as well as the interests of the county. And that more broadly defined is, of course, in the national agenda, but also if you think about internationally in terms of leveraging opportunities that you can get with vast networks of people who can support you. My brother here has just said that he has worked in the NGO world. I mean, in the developmental world, there are a lot of opportunities that you can be able to bring to your people. But then Sabbatical 2 establishes that the senators are supposed to be in control of laws and bills that affect the counties. And as I said, it's very important for me to look at how do we strengthen devolution and how do we make it efficient and effective. And there are some laws that I'm hoping that I'll participate in, or other pieces of legislation that I hope that I'll participate on and contribute in making, especially with regards to opportunities for income and jobs for women and youth. And there's some areas that I'll share that form my bias agenda in terms of which areas we can be able to take. But most importantly, Trevor, is that the same article in Sub-Article 3 establishes that the senators are charged with passing bills and looking at legislation that regard revenue distribution to all the counties, and thereafter oversighting over those resources. So I think that a big function of accountability and oversight on our counties is very fundamental to ensuring that resources that are sent to the counties are used properly. And I hope that I can be able to make a contribution in making, one, the resources for Migori being utilized effectively, but most importantly, also contributing more broadly in the resources that are used in other counties to make them more effective for our people. Okay.
Honorable Haro, where do your priorities lie? Because in the campaign trail, you made promises.
Yes.
Now the reality is here.
Yes, of course, the reality is here. And although I come from Mandera South, I realized I had underrated the level of poverty amongst the people when I was not a politician and when I was not an elected member. So when we were doing campaigns and we were going into the grassroots and villages and talking to different stakeholders, I realized actually the level of poverty in that constituency is underrated. And I think runaway poverty is one issue that is going to be a priority for me. And then there is the question of cyclic drought. We were campaigning at a time when that region has faced 4 years of lack of rainfall. And actually, if you look at the voter turnout in that part of the world, it was very low because most of the voters were, they had shifted to other countries, including Somalia and Ethiopia, looking for pasture and water. So we had very, very low turnout. So the cyclic drought and the impact it is having on our people is an issue that is going to be of priority for me. Of course, coming from a region which is along the Kenya-Somalia border, the question of insecurity, especially the Al-Shabaab menace, is a big question that has hindered development in that area, which makes my agenda actually quite large. And of course, we have a very young population, just like the rest of the country. We have a bulging youth population, which I consider to be, if the question around youth empowerment and youth joblessness and youth education is not addressed, then I consider it to be a ticking time bomb, not just for Mandera, but also for the nation at large. I have realized there was a big leadership vacuum, which I'm supposed to fill. There was sort of absentee leadership in the last 5 years. And of course, there is the question of broken promises. Everywhere I went to campaign, people were talking about, promises that were never fulfilled, and they were asking whether I'll be any different. And of course, as a legislator, I will also be able to focus on the national legislative agenda, especially now that we are in a very critical transition period in this country. A lot of, I don't want to call it wrangling, but there's a lot of competition even at the national level between different coalition parties and the legislative agenda. For those who want to, everybody having different approach towards the development agenda, the economic, empowerment question. And for my region, I think I will be very much concerned with issues at the national level and legislative agenda that will be able to help livestock farmers. And one of the areas that will be of key importance to me, which I think I will be able to work out on a bill, is the question of livestock insurance. Because as I had hinted earlier, we are going through a 4 season of lack of rainfall, and a lot of livestock have died, and you know, pastoralists don't have money in the banks. Their money is working on food, their livestock. They've invested everything in the livestock, and if these livestock die and they're not compensated, then it's very difficult for such a person to recoup again back to, you know, his earlier status. So there's quite a lot of issues, but my main focus will be around how to empower the bulging youth population, how to empower the women and especially small businesses, and how to tackle the question of cyclic drought, particularly as a result of, you know, climate change and issues around drought and lack of rainfall.
Yeah, and Jerry, you know what Onewaharo is saying is the most important part of it. How? It's the how that is where the rubber meets the road, not what. How to do it. Because you mentioned economic empowerment and also focusing on education. Your roles pretty much revolve around three main things: legislative, oversight, and representation.
Yes.
So how then do you want to do this? For example, the economic empowerment that you talked about, what will your administration do so differently? Are you going to go door to door so that people tell you this is what we want? How are you going to structure your public participation to ensure that people don't feel left out? Because when you say economic empowerment, that you're going to give projects that the people relate to, how will you ensure it's what the people relate to and not what just a select few want?
I believe I have said that I want to have a conversation with the people. So my kind of leadership that I want to offer for the people of Kirinyaga County is ward-based. Because, for example, in a constituency like Moya, the needs of Moya people are not the immediate needs of Gishogo people. Perhaps in terms of agriculture, Gishogo constituency focuses on tea farming. Moya constituency majors on rice farming. So what I want, Trevor, is to ensure that I have teams, the same teams that I was working with to manage my campaigns on the ground, collecting data and ensuring that we have interactive sessions with people whereby we put out notices and invite the public to come and tell us, this is what we would expect of you, and this is what we need you to prioritize to do for us. And then from there, we can look at the budget. Luckily, I have a small kit. Even if it's small, I believe that we can utilize it to our best capability. So we have a small kitty. We can sit down with the team and decide that we're able to allocate these funds to sustainable economic empowerment. And then we will ask for proposals. We have very many young people, Trevor, who are well-educated and who are, who've worked in NGOs and with humanitarian organizations. So they are able to put up proposals that can come up with sustainable projects that we can run. For example, during my campaign, instead of dishing out money, in one of the particular wards, and I was just doing it as a pilot project, I gave out macadamia seedlings. A macadamia seedling is around, I think, Kenya shillings 300 to 350, and it is something that a family will benefit from in the long term. So that is what I want to engage in, because I feel that if I offer quick fix solutions, then they will not empower my community in the long term. Matters to do with social welfare. I believe those are things that we can engage in. Perhaps like I can engage a team of counselors if it's things to do with mental health, and I can also legislate over the same. I also would like to legislate on matters to do with reproductive health, because I feel that they affect a demographic that I am specifically supposed to represent in Parliament. If it's education, I have said that from the kitty, we are allowed to allocate, I think, around 10%, 10 to 20. It should not go past 20% of that kitty. So we're going to look at the most vulnerable children in the community, because I feel if I'm going to give a bursary to a child, or maybe if I'm going to assist them in maybe perhaps purchasing some of the core school-related items, it must be a needy child. I feel what we lack perhaps is the goodwill in the system, and you find that there's no proper checks. Is this child needy? Has someone actually visited and done evaluation or evaluated whether the child is actually needy, or it's just being dished out to a child who's also been given assistance by the Member of Parliament, who's been given assistance by perhaps even the community, or is even under sponsorship. So for me, that is how I want to structure and deliver to the people of Kirinyaga County, it has to be a conversation, Trevor. Yeah. If I am coming to tell them this is what I want to do for them, perhaps that is not what they want from me. So I have to sit down with them. I have to know from the community, how many needy children do you have? Yeah. If I prioritize these children, is it okay for you? Or would you feel that you've been left out? Because I believe if I have such a structured governance, then it's going to be easy for me to come and tell the people, I came, you told me this is what you wanted, and I delivered on it. Yeah. So can you tell me where I went wrong? Or can you tell me why you will now want to question? So I think we have to have that conversation with the people. That way I'm able to deliver to them. Yeah, speaking of the reproductive health bill, you've touched on something there that I think has been on the floor of the House before through Millie Odhiambo, I think. What do you think was missing in terms of legislators working together? How will you bridge that divide? Because the biggest issue has always been UDA, ODM, the separation of the parties might sometimes end up making sure that your bill doesn't go through despite the fact that it was in the interest of the people. How then will you ensure that you can lobby your fellows to bring this up? Because it has been tried before by Millie Odhiambo. I think it was either shot down or it's in the process. How differently will you do it then? I believe, Trevor, that's something that will not be worked through overnight, because at the end of the day, I was voted in as a UDA candidate, and I have to toe the party line. And even the act, it cautions if you start acting outside of the party. But what I want to believe is that the 13th Parliament has members who can look beyond personal differences or party differences when it comes to working for the Kenyan people. I believe that is a personal commitment that people must make. And personally, I can speak for myself that I am committed to ensure that perhaps if, he's not in Parliament, but if he brings in a bill that will ensure that perhaps the Kenyan youth, the unemployment issues that we have, that they are looked after, or rather they go down, and the young people benefit. Just because we're not in the same party, I do not think that it is justice to the Kenyan people, even to the Kirinyaga electorate, because even Kirinyaga youth will benefit from that. I don't think it is right for me, just because we are from different parties, to ensure that I have shut down the bill. So for me, it is a personal decision, and I believe, and I am calling upon other legislators to at least let us agree that there are issues that we have to agree on, basic issues, like things which benefit our community. We cannot fight that, and I'm calling upon everyone who's going to be on the 13th, on the floor of the 13th Parliament, to at least make that personal decision to look beyond party lines. All right, I have to take a quick break. Eddie, okay, when I come back, you also touched on that issue of interest of the people versus county and also the county bills, but there's also a bit of push and pull on your side. We'll see how you deal with that, as well as on the Buharo as well. But let's take a quick break. When you come back, let's hear from you as well at Trevor Mbija at Citizen TV Kenya. Use the hashtag Kenya's Choice 2022. We'll sample some of your views, your questions, and your recommendations, plus your word of advice to the 13th Parliament. This is the face of the 13th Parliament, all right? See you in just a bit.